Good evening. I apologize the light isn't as good for this video because I'm filming at night. I came across a quote in a book that I want to share with you. That's the purpose of this video, but first I want to give it a little context. Many argue that there is a higher occurrence of depression and anxiety amongst Jehovah's Witnesses. I don't know if it's true or not. Some of the studies are questionable in the methods that they used, or it's possible that because some of them were conducted by ex-members that they're biased. But speaking from my personal experience, there is a lot of depressed people, a lot of anxious people in the Jehovah's Witness organization. I know that many of the people in my congregation, the congregation I came out of, were suffering from those things. And I believe that it is quite common, which is ironic because Jehovah's Witnesses read over and over again in their publications that Jehovah's Witnesses are the happiest people on earth. It's never supported by any evidence, but it's a claim that's made again and again and again, and I believe is part of the brainwashing or part of the influence that the Watchtower pushes on people, the sense that the only way you can possibly be anything like happy is if you're inside this organization. So for somebody who's already depressed, there is this sense that if you leave, it's only going to be worse. Or if you're anxious, it's only going to be worse. And that's what I want to question in this video. I want to talk a little bit about my own personal experience. I started having questions about Jehovah's Witness doctrine 10 to 12 years ago, and dating back about the same amount of time, I started having panic attacks. And it developed into panic disorder, which is basically where you're living in constant fear of a panic attack. You feel like you could have one at any minute. So I felt like I was at a level 8 in anxiety almost all the time, and it would spike up every once in a while into, or quite frequently at times, into panic attacks. I was on and off medication for years. I had cognitive behavioral therapy. All these things helped, but I don't believe that they got at the root cause. There's something called cognitive dissonance, which is where you have a belief in your mind that is challenged excuse me, by new information or a new thought, and you try to suppress that thought because it contradicts what you've always believed to be true. In the case of somebody who is in a authoritarian religion, or for that matter, authoritarian government, where you have been taught your whole life that you must not disagree, the cognitive dissonance can become really intense. You have this desire to just get rid of the thought at all costs, because the consequences of having that thought, of disagreeing, is so unthinkable. I had the ever-present fear that if I were to disagree, that I would lose everything. Lose my family, lose my friends. And I believe that that was where this panic was coming from, a feeling of being trapped in a belief system with this consequence held over my head. Because I had such an intense feeling of panic, bringing peace to other people's life became very important to me. I mentioned in my last video about my beard that I'm in the medical profession. I didn't want to get overly specific because I'm using my real name. I don't know why it matters. So I'm just going to tell you, I'm a massage therapist. I do neuromuscular therapy, which is a more medically inclined type of massage therapy. But massage in general is meant to be relaxing, right? And I have my own business now, but I used to be an employee, and my employer asked for me to come up with a mission statement, something that she could print in a brochure. And I never did come up with one. I think by the time I was supposed to, I had already started my own business or something like that. Or I just procrastinated and it never happened. But I remember when trying to think of that mission statement, the word that kept coming to my mind was peace. I wanted to somehow convey the idea that I wanted to help people find peace. Peace was never quite the right word, though, because it evokes thoughts of world peace. Not that there's anything wrong with world peace, but that wasn't the point. The point was individual peace, inner peace. So peace is a good word, but I think there's another word that goes along with it well, and I'll get to that in a minute. In fact, I'll get to it now. And this is the quote I wanted to share with you. It's from the book Crisis of Conscience, which, if you're a Jehovah's Witness or an ex-Jehovah's Witness, you know is probably the most well-known ex-Jehovah's Witness book out there. It's infamous among Jehovah's Witnesses. It was written by a governing body member, so he was as high up as you can get in this organization, and he found that there were things that he didn't believe, and it caused him great distress. And ultimately, he stepped down from his position as a governing body member. Excuse me. And to make a long story short, he was asked to leave or disfellowshipped and subsequently shunned. His wife made her exit with him. And he wrote this wonderful book, Crisis of Conscience, which, if you're a Jehovah's Witness, you've been told is filled with half-truth and lies, and that he is a bitter apostate. Well, he is an apostate in the sense that he changed his beliefs, many of them, at least the ones that centered around the idea of God needing a visible organization, an authoritarian one in particular. And towards the end, the very last chapter, it's entitled Perspective. He kind of just looks back on all this and what he's gained, and if there's things he lost, was it worth it? But there was a quote that I just was very moved by, and it really drove home my experience. It says, the mind that renounces once and forever a futile hope has its compensation in ever-growing calm. Now this is, he's quoting something that his friend used to say. I believe it's from another book. I'll say it again. The mind which renounces once and forever a futile hope has its compensation in ever-growing calm. Before I comment on that, I'll read the 2 paragraphs to follow. It says, I have found that saying true in my own case. I know that it has proved true in the case of many others. Whatever the initial distress, a distress that sometimes follows the demeaning experience of being interrogated by men who, in effect, strip one of human dignity, make the weight of their authority felt, and presume to judge adversely one's standing with God, however torn one may feel inside. Afterward there does come a distinct feeling of relief and of peace. It is not just knowing that one is finally outside the reach of such men, no longer subject to their ecclesiastical scrutiny and pressure. Truth, and the refusal to compromise truth, brings freedom in other fine and wonderful ways. The more responsibly one makes use of that freedom, the finer the benefits. My hope for myself is that I can make good use, responsible use of my freedom. But the point I want to make is that since I began awakening to my indoctrination and starting to free myself to do some real research into Jehovah's Witness origins and doctrines, I have not had a single panic attack. I've gone off my medication and have not had a single panic attack. The vestiges of anxiety, I have felt them taper off, and no panic attacks. I don't know that everybody will have that experience. I know that some being shunned causes anxiety and depression, some to the point of suicide. But my experience, and many experience, is that when you leave for conscientious reasons and no longer have this conflict in your mind, you feel a lot better. So I wanted to share that with you, that if you're feeling this conflict, free yourself to do some real research and explore the possibility that you have been duped, and that the reason you feel so anxious or the reason you feel depressed is because you are under mind control, under undue influence, and that you're a good person. You deserve to be happy, and you deserve to form your own belief system and worldview. That's okay. And once you can see that, I believe that peace and calm can be yours. To conclude, I'll read the key line one more time, and then I'll catch up with you soon in my video about information control, hopefully. I was going to wait for the cough to go away, but as you can see, I still have it, so I'm just going to have to break down and do the video and edit out some of the coughs. But here's again that quote. Thank you for watching. The mind which renounces once and forever a futile hope has its compensation in ever-growing calm.